Well, Riverside, I know that I usually start with looking at me, but I need to jump right into this because the nervous system is long and I'm going to run out of time. So the nervous system, um, it's our quick response system. It involves detecting things in the environment, so our senses, processing them, so thinking, our brain, and doing stuff about it, so our motor neurons. So that's a lot. So let's jump right in. So the nervous system is sort of broken down into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, with the central nervous system being the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system being everything else, all your senses and all your motor stuff. Peripheral is broken itself down into two sections: autonomic, which means you don't control it, and somatic or voluntary, meaning you can control it. Um, the the stuff you can control, we don't need to talk too much about. The stuff you can't control is broken down into sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic means is your fight or flight, fight, flight, or freeze response. Um, and your parasympathetic is your eat, drink, or eat, think, and be merry. Eat and be happy response. So you don't control these. If something stimulates your parasympathetic, then you're just going to be chill and hungry. And if something stimulates your sympathetic, you're going to be worked up. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Um, so, anyways, let's look at the cellular part of all of this. What it is that actually the functional part of the nervous system, the neuron. This is a neuron. I'm sorry, it's a little big to fit on this page. Um, it has these little, what are called dendrites, which I think translates to branches. It has dendrites to catch a signal, because it has to catch a signal from the environment or from another neuron. And then it has a cell body, which is just, because it's got to perform cellular functions. And then it has this long, long axon, is what this is, this long um, limb. The longest one goes from your big toe to your spinal cord. So it's about a meter, about 3 feet. And then at the other end of it are these terminal branches that send the message on to the next neuron, or the muscle, or whatever it is it's sending the message along to. So that's it in a nutshell. Here's more or less how. That's why we like the myelinated, because it goes faster. Called saltatory conduction. We're going way into it, too much in depth. Um, I do want you to understand how they fire. Um, so a neuron fires when something in the dendrites, a transmembrane protein in the dendrites, opens up and lets some charged things in, some sodiums in. So that could be detecting light in your eyes, would move a transmembrane protein out of the way, move that little bouncer out of the way. Now the salt comes in. Or it could be, touching your skin, moves those out of the way. Whatever it is, something moves the bouncer out of the way, the blockage, and the sodiums rush in. When the sodiums rush in, now you have a charged particle moving. So you get a little electrical charge. Um, and that electrical charge spreads down the cell. It's through voltage gated ion channels and stuff that are way in depth. I can explain it to you in class if you want. But you can think of it as an electrical pulse zapping through the neuron. And when it gets to the other side, here it is, boom, boom, boom. It's a little electrical pulse zapping through the neuron. When it gets to the other side, it lets out some chemicals, what are called neurotransmitters. Um, these are really key to understanding the nervous system. So it lets out these neurotransmitters. They cross the synapse, the gap from one neuron to the next, and then they have an effect on the next neuron. The reason those are so important is all drugs that we're going to talk about have their effect at the synapse. They either mimic or pretend they're like one of these neurotransmitters, or they block a neurotransmitter, or maybe they block the neurotransmitter from coming back out, or being reabsorbed. They have their effect there, and that's why we're going to do a drug research paper with this unit. But in the interest of time and keeping this short, we're going to jump right from neurons into the brain. So the brain has tons of parts. We don't really understand a lot of it. It's been said that if we could understand our brain, if our brain were simple enough for us to understand, we'd be too dumb to understand it. You can think about that for a while. But what we do know from brain injuries and from surgeries and from, magnetic resonance imaging and functional, well, whatever, from a bunch of things we can do, we have figured out what some of the parts of the brain do. This big blue part up here, the vast majority of it, is broken down into sections. So the whole frontal lobe, we used to not have any idea what it does. Now we know that it does thinking and planning, some language, some memories. There's a section here. Maybe I got it written out down below, but I thought I might have an image. The section of the parietal lobe right here is devoted to touch, and the one right behind it is devoted to motor, movement. So this is where we can sense touch and movement. Back here in what's called the occipital lobe, that's for sight and smell. Actually, smells more the temporal. Sight and hearing. Then if you were, the dark green thing deep down inside or down underneath, is called the cerebellum, which means below the cerebrum. This is all the cerebral cortex. Below the cerebrum, that's your balance and motor coordination. Deep inside, all these little parts together are collectively called the limbic system, and they deal with our emotions. The thalamus, right here at the top of the spinal cord, is the relay center that sends the messages to the parts of brain that it's supposed to. And then smell is deep down inside here, so smell can elicit a deeper, more emotional response than a lot of the other senses for that reason. The medulla oblongata, way down here, this thing, the medulla oblongata controls our unconscious things. Heartbeat, moving food through our gut, breathing, blinking, the things that we don't have to think about, that controls. Very bad if something happens to that. Here's a description of each of those sections and what they do. There is one other one that I want you to know, the amygdala. Do I not have it? I don't know if I have it written down there. Where is our amygdala? I don't seem to have it up here. I'll show you in class. The amygdala, it intensifies emotions, especially through adolescence. So your emotions are going to be extra intense. Now on to, there's the parasympathetic and sympathetic. That's like I said, your fight or flight is your sympathetic, and your parasympathetic is your eat and be happy. Senses. Here's the eye, more or less how it works. We're going to learn about the parts in class. Don't have time to go over them now. It focuses light, and then we have detectors, rods and cones in the back of the eye. Rods detect light, cones detect color, and they send messages to the brain that whether they detected light or color, and then we put it all together in our brains. Hearing, we're going to do it in class. Wiggling eardrum bangs these bones onto this cochlea, and then you get waves inside the cochlea, bending hairs. Those bent hairs move the blockage over the transmembrane protein. Messages sent to the brain, and based on where in here the hairs are bent, we can detect pitch and volume. Pretty mind-boggling. We'll learn about the parts of the ear too. I might need to do individual videos of all this, but I'm not going to have time if I try to squeeze it all into one. Smell, touch. There's 4 different touch receptors: heat, extreme temperature, pain, pressure, taste. No, your tongue doesn't have it. Nobody's tongue is like exactly the way they spell it out here. But you have 5 different senses: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. Hot is, in a sense, it's just pain. It's a pain sensor. They're your taste buds. And that is the unit. So I am going to quit here, and I will see you in the next one. Let me know if you want me to go deep dive into the senses or something, but I need to end it here to have time to post.